don't think that you're wrong at all.
Tell me, please, so I can get in my fucking head! You're so bitch, I can be out! I'm not gonna say it again! I'm not!
Okay, please don't.
I am not gonna say it again! I'm not gonna tell you! I said I'm sorry, I'm not gonna do it again! You're being asked me to shut the fuck up!
Okay. Please stop.
Ow! Taking this fucking bitch! Putting me down!
Why would you do that?
Because I can! You can't do shit about it.
Why?
Because you can't.
Hello, my name is James Shanley, and you're listening to disc number 3 of my album, Monster. The clip that you just heard was real-life footage from the year 2008 of my father being assaulted by his wife, Catherine Jo Bogus. For those of you with either an axe to grind, an agenda, or a cultural prejudice that forces you to accuse us of having made a fake or fraudulent tape, let me just put your arrogance and silliness out of its misery immediately, from its very infancy. I was an eyewitness of this pattern of anger and violence from Kathy. I saw it every day. I lived it. It happened to me. It happened to Kathy's kids. It happened to my baby sister, Jamie. Kal-El was not born yet, but I can only imagine what kind of terror he lives in now. Kathy has a borderline personality disorder, in which she can, and does, flip out at any moment without being provoked. More often than not, it's for no reason at all. In early 2010, we fled her well-documented violence, child abuse, and child neglect with my baby sister Jamie and my baby brother Kal-El. We went to St. Cloud, Minnesota for all of our safety. This is what any reasonable person would do. And this is what a good father who loves his children would do. It only fails to make sense to people whose eyeglasses are dirty with the mud of radical and outdated 1960s feminism. But I have yet to meet a sane or normal person who has ever questioned my dad's decision to flee for the refuge of a faraway location in order to provide his children security and safety from a woman who clearly needs help, as well as for us as a family to heal, regroup, and think about life's next steps. We were doing just fine until a shocking court decision in November 2011 from Anoka County Judge Bethany Fountain-Lindberg. She thought that it would be cute to endanger my baby siblings by returning them to Kathy, even though she has seen and heard evidence of what kind of woman Kathy is. I know firsthand that this is a very dangerous and wrong decision. There was no tangible evidence against my dad, and there were no brute facts upon which to base this horrifying order. There were only false accusations invented by Kathy and proven to be lies in court. When my dad demanded to know the evidentiary basis for Lindberg's crazy decision, she did not feel like she owed him one. She simply threw her hand up at him in a very juvenile talk-to-the-hand motion. The little goddess in the black robe, not elected, but appointed, not accountable to the voters. It reminded me of what I read about both the Roman Catholic Inquisition and the Salem witch trials. Anyone can invent any accusation, no matter how false, and bring it up as many times as they want, over and over and over again. And the people in power will literally take it seriously every time, and literally investigate it every time. They take action against the falsely accused without probable cause, set in motion by baseless accusations that everyone in the room knows are lies. In the end, the falsely accused never receives an apology. The false accuser's damaged credibility as a now established and proven liar is never recognized by them. The false accuser is never punished for inventing lies and abusing the system in order to try to control and manipulate outcomes. And oftentimes, if they cannot get the accused on the main charge, they will invent something small upon which to ultimately attempt to hang them. They will even lie, like when Anoka County Child Protective Services worker Christine O'Brien lied and said that we were back living under the same roof as Kathy, when she knew full well that we actually lived 2 hours away. Or when Amy Meidinger spread slander by lying and saying that my dad secretly taped her meeting with him without her knowledge, when the tape itself clearly has her asking for a copy of it. It was in plain sight throughout the whole meeting, and I have heard the interview. She makes mention of it multiple times. How can you you ask for a copy of something, give off the evidence of the fact that you were conscious of its presence, and then later claim that you never knew about it, Amy. Or when Amy tried to manipulate Albany, Minnesota police officer Kevin Brown and the Stearns County Sheriff Deputy Gina Feldward into taking my brother Kal-El and my sister Jamie away from my dad, when they, as emergency first responders, did not see any signs of abuse. Or when she harassed my dad by trying to say that I was truant, when she knew full well that I was being homeschooled. Really? Even the cop perceived that she was nuts and that she had an agenda. I guess if I want to be an Anoka County government employee when I grow up, I will need to lose 30 or 40 IQ points and become dishonest in order to qualify. I was proud to hear that my dad grilled her on the stand when she threatened Kathy and tried to force her to manufacture false charges against my dad and attempt to get a fraudulent order for protection against him. Amy was visibly shaken when she walked out of that courtroom. She's used to intimidating people by threatening to take their children if they don't fulfill her wish list. And my dad did not bow down. He's not made that way. He loves his kids too much to negotiate with terrorism. When it comes to us, he does not compromise our safety or our future, no matter how powerful the predator imagines that they are. Man, was Amy upset. She was totally unprepared to be called out on her crookedness and sloppiness. It was great. If I live to be 100, I will never forget it. But when you're dealing with moral relativists who don't believe in absolute standards of right and wrong, there's no good reason for them to care about the truth. When you are dealing with Saul Alinsky radicals who are mentally stuck in 20th century Europe, the ends justify the means. This makes it okay to lie if necessary. Arriving at the predetermined end goal is all that really matters. This is clearly the culture of Anoka County, at least among the government employees, as far as I've been able to observe. Kathy gets to lie about my dad without bounds. She gets to train her kids to lie about my dad too. The whoppers they come up with under the leading and direction of their handlers in child protection are really quite impressively creative. I have to give them credit. According to Kathy's fantasy world, my dad did ghastly and violent things to those kids. If my dad were a child abuser, guess who would know about it better than anyone else on the planet? Me. Because I've lived with and been raised by him and him alone since I was a baby. If he were abusive, I would wear the physical, mental, and emotional scars. Anyone who wants to hang or fire my dad as a parent needs to begin and end with me. I am the best primary eyewitness alive. Why have they not delved into me? They haven't so much as bothered with an interview. How come? It's simple. Because I love God, I love America, I do well in school, I volunteer in the community and the church, I'm an actress in plays, I'm happy, I'm well-adjusted, and people like me. I know I'm loved by my dad, and I've never been abused by him. So does everybody else who has ever known us. The reason why neither the courts, nor the supposed child protection, nor the so-called guardian ad litem's office will even bother to interview me is plainly and simply because of my success as a person. Indeed, my very existence is inconvenient to their end goal and their desired outcome that they are seeking to engineer. They know I am living proof of the fact that my dad is a good man and father. And those facts get in the way of their attempt to make my baby siblings wards of the state, which is obviously their real end game. Why allow facts to get in the way of a perfectly good power grab attempt? My dad is a smart mouth at times, and does speak out against evil things when he sees them, without considering ahead of time about what that speaking out is going to cost him, or the ones he loves. I admit this much, but he would never physically harm anybody, much less a woman or a kid. But now Fountain-Lindberg has arbitrarily, and for no reason other than the fact that my dad is a man, sent my brother Kal-El and my sister Jamie to where they can be trained by Kathy to lie, just like she has already thoroughly trained Casey, Joe, and Kal-El. And the report of the so-called guardian ad litem seems to show that my fear of this is justified, as she has already trotted my baby siblings out in front of psychologists who have a prejudice to begin with, and on command, reciting what she has told them to say. She has my baby brother and my baby sister performing in front of these fools as though they were circus animals, and lying in addition. I would love to see Lindbergh's track record to see how many battered women fled from their male abuser with their kids for safety, and were later penalized with such disrespect and hostility. I am currently writing a letter to Congress in order to request that Anoka County's history of decisions from the bench be audited and examined for a pattern of this kind of activism and disregard for the facts in other cases. How many other Jamies and Kal-Els have they endangered by discriminating against men? I am hoping that you will consider writing a letter like this to Congress as well. Anoka County Family Court may not care about what the evidence says, but they have to care about what Congress says, and they have to care what you say. Kathy's lies had my dad being forced to visit my brother and sister in a government-run facility in Fridley in January 2012 because of Anoka County Family Court's corrupt decision-making. My dad picked Kathy and the kids up. If my dad is so dangerous, why did Kathy ride there with him? She should have been scared out of her mind. What a transparent scam artist. Everybody but Anoka County can see through her. Anyway, the public facility, it turned out, was full of people that Kathy already knew ahead of time. She had been there before. She was a regular. Thus, it was neither a safe nor a neutral meeting place. Her friend on the staff there, Mary Eggert, even greeted Jamie and Kal-El by name. Then Kathy took off for several hours. Why leave a supposedly dangerous man with your kids for hours? Over the course of this excuse for visitation, my dad observed another kid there, being watched by government workers who are paid with your tax dollars. They had a toddler boy under their so-called care. His parents were not even present. These state employees had dressed him in a pink dress. His parents were not there to say yes or no to their son's involvement in this deviant and horrible behavior. The kid was not old enough to knowingly consent to it. They had forced him into it. They had arrogantly taken it upon themselves to plant the seeds of gender identity issues into this kid's mind. After having lived with Kathy for years, myself and Dad have acquired a hatred of this kind of abuse of little kids. He respectfully asked questions about it. He merely pointed it out and stated that there was a possibility that his parents might not like it if they were there. He was speaking from a father's heart. My baby brother had been there before, and I'm sure my dad would never want his son to be forced to wear a pink dress. Eggert, the exalted government worker, not used to being asked any questions, just laughed at him. She is so out of touch with normalcy as our culture in the private sector, the majority of American society has defined it, that my dad's questions were humorous from her vantage point. He moved on from that goofy conversation with Eggert and played with my brother and sister. This was the real reason he was there in the first place. But he maintained a live to fight another day attitude about the little boy, who in the city of Fridley dressed in drag without his parents' knowledge or consent. He took a picture to document what they had done to the boy. The idea being that he would need evidence to corroborate his story when he later would have this abuse addressed by someone higher. Lunchtime came, and my brother and sister were hungry. By this point, Kathy had been gone for hours. She had not packed them any lunch, nor set an expectation of when she was going to return and feed them. So my dad took them by the hand and began to look for either a cafeteria or vending machines. He just wanted to feed his crying babies. I'm sure this makes sense. According to Eggert's later fictionalized version of this story, she would probably have preferred that he starve his babies, because she would later attempt to pervert and distort the truth about him seeking out a source of food for his children in a building that is financed by his tax dollars. Anyway, all he could find was a soda machine. He gave them soda pop. Better than nothing, I guess. Then he returned to the play area and finished playing with the kids. He backed them to Kathy's van, strapped them in, and said goodbye. My baby sister Jamie even asked that he come along. Dad had photographic evidence that the babies were happy to be around him on this day. No signs of problems in the least. Kathy hugged my dad goodbye. Why let a dangerous, abusive, and violent man walk you to your van? Why hug him? Why let a baby cry for him? Kathy's story is a fairy tale for the gullible. My dad said in passing, out of concern about the fact that my baby brother and sister obviously go there frequently, Kathy, you'll never guess what happens in there when kids' parents aren't around. He showed her the picture of the boy he planned to take to the authorities to report this place. Kathy left and called Mary Eggert, who worked at this early family child education center, and told her that my dad planned to report this, and that he had photographical proof. Eggert went into self-preservation and damage control mode. Rather than deal with the issue, she decided to deal with the man who raised the issue. Eggert called the Fridley Police Department and lied her behind off. She said that my dad was taking pictures of kids, wandering the building, and things like that. The icing on the cake was saying that my dad supposedly brought my sister into the bathroom and spanked her. The lengths to which she went in order to protect her position were really quite remarkable. Her creativity was without peer. And when you combine Kathy's compulsive lying with the government workers' desire for covering their behind when they had abused their power, you have the perfect storm. The police report makes my dad sound like the nut instead of either Kathy or Eggert. And this fictional police report made its way into the Guardian ad litem report. And everybody who has even the most basic knowledge of the situation is able to see what team the Guardian ad litem's office is playing for. It doesn't get much more dirty or corrupt than that. This whole thing is a frustrating nightmare. My brother and sister need to be liberated from two monsters, Kathy and the Anoka County government workers. Both of them will destroy my brother and sister if they are not confronted and made to stay within their boundaries. Both of them will kill any real shot that my brother and sister have at a normal and successful life. It's no wonder why Anoka County Family Court is a punchline among the lawyers that my dad knows. We've been treated to complete and utter amateur hour. Here is both the stupidity and the arrogance of Anoka County. The Hennepin County Child Protection investigators are wrong. The Minneapolis Police Department is wrong. The Albany Police Department is wrong. The Stearns County Sheriff is wrong. The Stearns County Child Protection investigators are wrong. Unity Hospital is wrong. Everybody is wrong except them. Does this sound sick or what? My brother and sister with Kathy is a disaster waiting to happen. I dare you to interview me, Anoka County. What are you afraid of? My dad fought hard against the anti-mail system once, and against my mom, who is an alcoholic and a drug addict, among other things. My dad's ability to absorb punishment, as well as his unwillingness to give up, no matter how hopeless the situation looks, are why I have grown up with him. And my life is better for it. One day I know that Jamie and Kal-El will be able to say the same.
At least I know the truth that I'm the one who was beating you up, and I haven't laid my hand on you for a little while.
You gotta prove that I'm unfit, Mother. You have to prove a lot of shit in court. You can't do shit to me.
You're a violent person.
I don't give a fuck. I can come back on you 10 times worse. It's called money. That's what they like.
So you think you can buy your way?
You want this?
Hello, this is James Shanley. You're listening to Gabrielle Shanley's audio CD. It's called Monster. This is disc number 3 in an album. On disc number 2 of this album, I was in the middle of offering commentary on the clips that made up disc number 1, so that those clips could be put into context and be made more easy for all to understand. But the limits of technology in 2012 have me in a place where only 80 minutes of information will fit onto an audio CD. So, of course, just when I was getting flowing, I was cut off. We're going to pick that commentary up right here, so you get a full picture of what it was like to live under the roof with Kathy. Now, for those of you who are new to this series, disc number 3 being the first one that you've ever heard, I highly recommend that at some point you listen to disc number 1 and disc number 2 so you can be brought up to speed. You're probably wondering, what the heck mess am I listening to? This can't possibly be real. What drama, what nightmare is this? Well, first of all, like I said, listen to the first 2 discs, but for now, the short version, just to get you caught up, is this. Picture being an 8-year-old little girl. Your mother is a drunk. She left you and she moved out of state. You have no adult female role model. You're being raised by a single father. He's a strong guy and he's doing all he can. But eventually, you're in a position where you need a mother. You're going to be at an age where women issues are going to be coming up that your dad just doesn't have the capacity to understand, without regard to how nice he is. Your dad marries a woman in order to meet that need for you. You're hopeful that your new stepmom is going to be exactly what you were dreaming of. And she plays the game and she gets into your life and gets into your house. And she even brings 2 new kids with her. And you're excited. It's like the Brady Bunch. 2 different families coming together. But one day she either snaps, or she was crazy from the beginning, but you didn't see it until it was too late and you were in too deep to get out of it. She beats and strangles your dad right in front of your face. She pulls knives on you and your dad. She makes fun of you. She talks trash about you. She lets her other kids mistreat you, and any attempt that your dad makes to correct it is met with severe penalties that leave bruises all over his body. She turns to you one day and, with an evil look, says, "Would you like to know what it's like to not have a father? I can make that happen. I can have him put into prison for 5 years. You don't have a mom, so you're going to go into foster care and be raised by strangers who don't even care about you, just like I was." Imagine saying to the woman, "But he doesn't do anything to you." And the woman's laughter-filled response is, It doesn't matter. They'll believe me over him. With this kind of threat to your basic stability by an evil and violent person who has already lied about both you and your dad multiple times, what is your only option? You tell your dad. You warn your dad. And if your dad loves you and wants to protect both his freedom against future possible false charges, as well as to clear his name and to continue to be in your life, what would be the smart thing for the guy to do? Obviously, it would be to what? To wear a wire. Well, that's what I did. Since Kathy had a real predisposition, a real tendency in the direction of factual inaccuracy and deception, and since most cops and most government workers and most therapists did not believe me, based on the fact that a man being beaten is very rare, and even some of them, according to their cultural presuppositions, demand that that can't even exist, I needed documentation of the truth at the ready for Kathy's next lie. Her lie needed to be answered with truth, and the tape was the only thing that would do it. Except for some who are so married to the idea that this can't possibly exist that they're willing to call any proof a fabrication. It has to be a false tape. Why? Because my prejudices demand that it can't exist. That's insane. The tape recorders around the house were not meant to damn or to harm. They were meant to vindicate and to help. And thus far, we're excited for what they're doing. After being kept secret for years, they're slowly beginning to become public. We're pleasantly surprised by the public response to the first 2 discs. One of the sweetest surprises being people that know Kathy personally, who thought that I was a violent, I was a controlling, I was a manipulative man, based solely on the fact that she told them so. People like this are coming forward almost weekly and apologizing to me. They're even turning and providing us with helpful information that's going to prove very useful down the road about Kathy and about my kids and about their current situation that, quite honestly, we otherwise would have never known about without their tips. Kathy, in her daily life, is surrounded by people who, up to very recent times, ate up wholesale her spin on all kinds of events that took place under our roof. There is a small group that has wisely withheld judgment. Why? Because they never heard myself and they never heard Gabriel on the matter. And the Bible says not to judge until you've heard both sides. It even says that if someone's a licensed minister, you cannot establish a charge against him without the witness of 2 or 3 credible, non-involved eyewitnesses. But people like this, who have the wisdom to not jump to conclusions just because somebody flapped their lips and said something, they have been, without my help now, seeing Kathy's conduct. They've been hearing Kathy's speech. And several have said, you know what, my gut always told me that something was off about her. Something was wrong with her story, but I never could put my finger on it until now. So these CDs have been used by God to change the minds and change the hearts of people who have been open to hear the evidence anyway. We're seeing in its earliest stages an exciting chain reaction of people cracking and coming forward. These are people who go to church with Kathy. These are people who run into her in the community, in the marketplace. People who thought I was the scum of the earth. They heard disc 1 and 2 and they said, okay, there's definitely something off here. There's a piece of the story we were never told. And I got to say, me and my daughter Gabrielle, or rather my daughter Gabrielle and myself, we would like to publicly thank the people in Columbia Heights and in Fridley who are furnishing us with new information all the time. And my kids, Jamie and Kal-El, will eventually be thanking you when they're old enough to understand what's going on here. Every time I hear from someone in the community on this issue, they're immediately asking how they can be of help. My preferred method is to have financial donations to the legal fund. Anoka County seems like its mind is already made up. Kathy could kill 5 people with chainsaws, and she'll still be giving my kids because of the fact that she's a woman and I'm not. That she's a demonstrated liar, a spousal abuser, a filer of false police reports, a child abuser, a child neglector, a convicted committer of welfare fraud. These things matter nothing in the kangaroo court that is Anoka County, Minnesota, family so-called court. This coming trial is merely a formality. I might as well not even show up. So, unless I'm to just bow down, lick the court's boots, and let it ride as an unalterable fate, that my kids need to live with in silence and in fear for the rest of their lives. That has put my feet up while my kids are endangered and ultimately destroyed. Unless I'm willing to do all of that, then I guess we're going to be in appeals court. And if that doesn't work, we'll go to a higher court. And if that doesn't work, we'll be in the state Supreme Court. I mean, this is not going to be cheap. This is not a sprint, it's a marathon. However, if, due to the horrible economy, you lack the financial resources necessary to help in that particular way, here's a list of phone numbers that you can begin dialing to voice your opinion to about this issue. First of all, the judge who condemned my kids to a life with Kathy, Bethany Lindberg. Her phone number is 763-422-7469. Again, Bethany Lindberg, Fountain-Lindberg. What is this, 1968? 763-422-7469. The Guardian Ad Litem program of the state of Minnesota, who used Kathy's many false charges against me as the basis for recommending that my kids go with her, based mainly on the fact that I'm a male. These people can be reached on 763-279-0158. And you've got to ask for Greg King. Again, 763-279-0158. Greg King, Minnesota, State of Minnesota Guardian Ad Litem program. If Anoka County, quote-unquote, Child Protective Services, who make it a practice to lie, manipulate, control, and have a power trip over parents on your tax dime, whose reputation in Minnesota is well known, just ask around. They're on 763-422-7105. Again, Anoka County, so-called Child Protective Services, 763-422-7105. In my particular instance, they're upset that they couldn't frighten me into sitting in on a government-endorsed parental indoctrination course with a business or a therapy center that they, of course, have a contract with. Amy Meitinger or Schwartzlander or whatever she calls herself, Christine O'Brien, Rob Whaling, Jennifer Ashford. All these people have come at me in different ways and at different times. They've all sat with either my kids or Kathy's kids and asked leading questions and planted things in their mind which, they're designed to direct the conversation in a predetermined direction that they've always wanted it to go. They've abused the system in that when they lack the evidence to come after me themselves like grown adults, they leaned on Kathy and threatened her and intimidated her and got her to file false charges against me, a false, trumped-up order for protection, and she's already done 2 of them so far. I expect them to manufacture another one any time. I look at the calendar and I'm definitely due, but each one is more heinous than the last and more outlandish and more fictitious, but it cost me $1,500 that I don't have to defend myself from these things. That it wasn't possible to intimidate me into taking a plea deal, and that I've literally went through with the whole hearing and confronted and cross-examined these government agencies that are paid by my tax dollars, that they're very ungrateful for. I've put them on the stand, Amy Schwartzlander-Meitinger in particular, and I've exposed her as a liar to the point that she had to say, I don't recall, more times than Oliver North. And this was such a traumatic shot to their egos, all of them, that they continue to this day to dedicate your taxpayer money and the resources that you paid for into inventing false charges against me on a routine and a habitual basis, to the point that one would have to see this as harassment. Call them and let them know that somewhere right now out there's a kid being burned with an iron. There's a kid getting kicked in the ribs. There's a kid being starved. There's a kid being beaten with a cord in the back. Tell them what abuse is, please. Tell them to stop wasting resources by lying and by coming after innocent people just to settle old scores and redeem themselves, to make them feel happy when they look in the mirror. That's not what you pay for. Tell them to be professionals. Tell them to act like adults with your money. This is neither 1930s nor 1940s Germany, nor is it communist Russia. You need to tell them to stop being the Gestapo and stop being the Red Guard who tries to penalize people who think, who act, and who parent differently than the official state-approved way. They're only acting a fool right now because they don't understand that you're looking over their shoulder. Let them know it. 763-422-7105. Or how about the so-called church that failed to protect its infants and toddlers by allowing Kathy to work in the nursery? You think I'm kidding? I'm not. She still works there on occasion to this day. 763-789-4337. Again, 763-789-4337. Despite the fact that Kathy has been found guilty of maltreatment and neglect by Child Protective Services of Hennepin County, Minnesota. And it's a matter of public record that any researcher worth the paper that his birth certificate is printed on would have picked up in a routine background check, and that I personally faxed a hard copy of the final report to that church. I still have the fax transmittal sheet to this day that says it went through successfully and they got it. If you were to visit Oak Hill Baptist Church in Columbia Heights, Minnesota, either this Sunday morning or this Wednesday night, you would likely find Kathy in the nursery, possibly even holding a baby. Insane, isn't it? Again, 763-789-4337. When you call there, what are they going to say about me? Argumentum ad hominem. That's Latin for against the man. They're going to call me names. They're going to call me abusive. They're going to call me manipulative. Why? Because I think different than they do. Because I've been exposed to more facts than they're willing to look at. Because I'm shining light, and that light hurts their eyes because of how long they've been in the darkness. But the leadership there prefers the dark. It's easier to just dismiss me as a crazy nut who just didn't fit into the place and believe Kathy's hype that the abuser was me and not her. Because taking that particular position requires no work, no thinking, no wrestling with the issues. It's almost a lazy view in a way, but it's darn convenient. Here's the thing though, if you notice, I'm not hiding the fact that they exist. I'm not afraid. The truth is never afraid of inquiry. It's never afraid of the exchange of ideas. If you were to call them in order to report that they have a violent offender working with their babies, and that this can be documented via a Child Protective Services report, which is backed by hospital reports and tangible evidence, and they respond by talking badly about the guy who made the information public rather than a conversation about the information itself, I want you to know that I'm willing to debate either Reverend Briley or Reverend Wyden in a public forum in front of the entire church, if need be, regarding the evidence of the events that took place under my roof. When they refuse that exchange of ideas, you've got to see at that moment that the emperor has no clothes. Their refusal to exchange ideas in a rational manner and to examine the facts to see whether these things are true, and their preference to just believe rumors, hearsay, slander, and gossip should forever seal the issue in your mind. It should be proof positive of a clear and present leadership deficiency at that place, just like the community always tried to tell me when I was there, but I always defended the place. But now I'm radically disappointed in them. Again, 763-789-4337. If they failed to protect your babies from Kathy, because they like her smile, because they see her as a mule with utilitarian usefulness in terms of labor and functionality and getting things done for that church, whatever their angle is, the question then becomes, what other sickos have they allowed around your little ones? I'm willing to defend every word that I've spoken here, as is my daughter Gabrielle. 763-789-4337. My daughter Gabrielle, she's willing to discuss these things. This whole album was her idea. 612-709-0385. That is 612-709-0385. My number, 612-867-0699. 612-867-0699. We are in a desperate need of assistance as we take on the monster. We've got the facts and the evidence on our side. We simply need the financial resources to hire the pros who can lay those facts out in a way that's irrefutable. Anoka County's going to look at them and snicker with their nose in the air, and we're going to have to be an appeals court. This is already something that I've been able to see for quite some time. Or how about the company who hired Kathy to be a PCA? That is personal care assistant. I kid you not. If you've not heard, any of the clips of Kathy's multiple methods of being abusive to spouses and to children, or if you haven't heard her greatest hits on disc 1 of this series, I highly encourage you to listen. Then I want you to ask yourself the question, would you want this person doing these things on this album, without regard to whether they happened 1 year ago, 2 years ago, or last month? The length of time that passed doesn't matter. Would you want this person being responsible for your elderly, for your infirm, for your terminally ill, for your developmentally disabled loved one? No, not unless you wanted something horrible to happen to them. Maybe if you're trying to get an inheritance or something, you'd put Kathy with him, you know. But 952-854-6364. That is 952-854-6364. When I called Hennepin County Child Protective Services in order to let them know that Kathy had been hired in this capacity, the person who answered the line at first was amazed. She then said, "Wow, they must not do background checks." 952-854-6364. Once I called them, of course they dragged their feet. They were begrudgingly doing this. They were dragged there kicking and screaming, but eventually they did their job. They requested and saw the documents, and they had no other alternative but to stop doing business with Kathy, at least along these lines. Kathy had deliberately withheld that information from them when applying for the job, the information that she was a spousal and a child abuser, and that it was documented in a finding of a government agency, and the law says she cannot work in that capacity for 10 years. Now, Kathy's never-ending quest to have people perceive her as a victim to anyone who will listen, that quest still rages on. And, of course, Anoka County so-called child protection, with your tax dollars, is seeking to work with this company to get Kathy's job back. You've got to be kidding. Kathy, a PCA. Now, while most of the people understood this and they saw my making these people aware of the facts that really they shouldn't have missed in the first place, they saw it as a public service that might have even saved some people from injury. Child Protective Services is working with Kathy in order to spin it so that it now sounds like a vengeful act by a vindictive and controlling soon-to-be ex-husband who's seeking to control things. They're literally dedicating man-hours, and those man-hours are paid for by your taxes, to this very effort. If that doesn't disgust you, then nothing will. 952-854-6364. Or the Minnesota Board on Judicial Standards, 651-296-3999. A few pages into their own literature, they do have a booklet. It says the following are some types of judicial conduct that may lead to discipline. One of them is improper courtroom decorum, rude, abusive, and otherwise improper treatment of parties, counsel, witnesses, jurors, court staff, and others. There was a time in which the judge turned to me and said, "Why have you been keeping the kids from Kathy?" Now, first of all, the question presupposes that I've kept the kids from Kathy. It's like, why did you rob the bank? Before we talk about why I robbed the bank, let's establish the fact that I robbed the bank. You see, when your question is worded in such a way that it assumes certain negative presuppositions, you've literally set it up so that the person is going to answer the way that you want. So if there's a prejudice or a preconceived idea, then obviously that may be a problem there. Also, it says expressions of bias based on gender, ethnicity, etc. We are to be freed from leading questions in a court of law in America. I wasn't asked a leading question by the attorney. I was asked by the judge. The assumption was, you're keeping the kids from Kathy. We're moving past that to why. I want to know if a woman ran away from the man because the man was beating her and took the kids because that's what a normal person would do, if she would ask the woman, why have you been keeping the kids from this man? When you conclude that she would never ask that question, then expressions of bias based on gender, ethnicity, etc. fit in just perfectly, as well as rude, abusive, and otherwise improper treatment of parties, counsel, witnesses, jurors, court staff, and others. when you say all of a sudden for no apparent reason, the kids are going with mom, and someone asks why, and you put your hand in the air, in the old talk to the hand kind of way, and you're a judge. You're paid with the tax dollars of the person that you're disrespecting. Yeah, that's a little classless, you know what I mean? So, again, the Minnesota Board on Judicial Standards, 651-296-3999. Get a copy of their literature, look at it, and see if in your conscience you view this particular issue as something that you would also like to file a complaint on, because I plan to do it my own self, as do a few other people that I've already talked to about this issue. And the courtroom transcripts will bear out at least the verbal parts that the conversations went that direction. In terms of the nonverbal, the hand in the air, I'm telling you in the sight of God that it happened that way. If you get the judge in an honest moment, she should say it. So should the bailiff. So should any cops on duty, court transcriptionists, opposing counsel. Even Kathy would say that, although Kathy was happy about it. But it went down that way. 651-296-3999, Minnesota Board on Judicial Standards. Now, if you cannot help financially, I would ask that you help by getting on the phone and calling those places and voicing your opinion about those things that you've heard. Getting your complaints known. The community needs to act. They need to come together on this one. All the Christian saints need to come together on this one, because a great injustice is taking place to two babies by a wicked system. Let's all come together and let's do this. Any help that you can furnish us, I would be radically grateful and in your debt always.
The day that I was arrested, did I do anything to you all?
No.
Did you hit me?
No.
Did I go to jail for something I did?
No. When you went to jail for nothing, because I put you there, you went to anger management.
It was a domestic violence class. I was sitting next to people that had hurt their wives, that had choked girls. One guy slammed a woman's leg in the car door. These are serious people. And then I'm sitting there with them. Do I belong in that group? Have I done anything like that to you?
No matter. You do not do
Did I do anything like that to you?
No. I'm the one who put you there.
So at this point, we're going to pick up where we left off at the end of Disc 2, which is to provide commentary of the clips from Disc 1 that help put into context and make sense of all of those wild events that are on the disc. You see, if you watched the evening news and you saw the highlights of the game played by your favorite football team, but the color commentator didn't give you a play-by-play, or at least have the final score on the screen, or tell you how many yards your favorite running back ran, or for how many yards your favorite quarterback threw, the clips that compose that highlight reel might fail to make sense to some without a little bit of commentary behind it. Now, some might criticize me and say, well, on disc number 1, why are there only clips? That's like asking a newscaster why he did not re-televise the entire football game. We're just trying to arrive at an account of what took place by way of examining the highlights. Do you want to hear dozens and dozens and dozens of hours of walking around, of breathing, of opening up refrigerators, things of that nature? Or do you want to get straight to the nitty-gritty and actually find out what the heck took place? If anyone has any questions or any criticisms in terms of whether or not these clips are actually true to the context of the overall recording from which they're taken, I challenge you here and now to bring your best. The entire library will be made available in its uncut form to any doubters or any sincere seekers of truth. You see, I, unlike Kathy and her supporters, have nothing to hide by the truth coming out in its most raw form. Matter of fact, I've